Good morning. So, when you were younger, or maybe you didn't, I don't know, did you play sports? Think about baseball. If you're the one that's sitting on the bench and the coach never puts you in, that could be pretty upsetting. Or maybe you were just afraid to be put in. Maybe you were glad to sit on the bench because maybe you didn't think you were as good as the other players. Maybe you were afraid to get up to bat, that you would strike out and everybody'd be upset with you. I remember when I was real young and I was in swimming lessons for some reason. I don't remember why, but I remember being in a swimming class and I was afraid to swim. And I remember them having us swim down the pool, and I was on the side where the side of the pool was. And I was just holding the side of the pool and going down and making my way down the whole pool while I was holding onto the side. And of course they saw me doing that and tried to work with me on learning how to swim, actually. And so, but I was afraid to get in the water and actually swim. I mean, long story short on that, I eventually learned. But if you're afraid to try, if you're afraid to get up to bat because you're worried about striking out, if you're afraid about doing something for your life, for you, because you're worried about possible failure and letting everyone down, you've got to give that up. You've got to let loose of that. Because every time you give up that try, you give up that, let me see if I can do this, you're giving up pieces of you. When I first started my path of eating healthy and trying to exercise, I was afraid. I was afraid to try because so many times in my adult life I've tried and I've not succeeded. I don't like to use the word failure, but I guess you could say I failed because there was times where I wouldn't even try. And to me, that's the only failure, is not trying. So is that you today? That you're afraid to get up to bat because A, you don't want to fail, B, you don't want to let everyone down, or C, you don't want to let yourself down, because that's demoralizing when you let yourself down time after time after time. But you could be stronger than that. There is more in you than what you're believing. You can be a warrior. You just have to allow yourself to feel it. Stop getting in your head and letting your subconscious, your inner self talk you out of things. Because that's what's going to keep you where you're at. Your fears, your doubts. People tend to stay in their little comfort zone. You ever play two square? It's real easy. You just hit the ball back and forth in your little squares. I played that as a kid. Hopscotch. All you had to do was jump in the little squares. You stayed in your lane. But as a grown-up, all of that's off the table. All of that has changed. You can no longer just stay in your little squares. You can no longer stay in that that vertical line that society and people draw out for you, maybe you've drawn out for yourself. It's time to step up, put your big girl panties on, and do what's best for you, regardless of what those consequences are going to be. Regardless if you trip up, because then you just get back up and keep going. Life is certainly a journey that can't be missed, because you're on a path no matter what you're doing. If you're finding yourself way overweight, way unhealthy, you're on a path of destruction. That's what the path you're on. I was on that path. So you need to take the steps to change that path, to change the course of your life. And there's only one way to do that. You got to take control. You have to decide that life is worth living and not just getting by. Life is worth experiencing and not just sitting in your house. I have a friend, Jody, who recently told us about a jar she's keeping. And I thought this was such a great idea. So every time she does something new, she writes it down and puts it in the jar. Something she's never done before. And she's doing all kinds of cool things, like taking classes on how to decorate a cake, taking classes on how to do floral arrangements, things she's never done before. And she writes them down and she puts them in that jar. So I encourage you to do things you've never done before in the name of your health, in the name of your life, because life is worth living. You just have to take the steps to get there and not be afraid to get up to bat. Y'all have a great, blessed day, and go raw or go home.